Welcome, my dear guests, to the captivating expanses of my story. Chapter 4, 2203. The EK Susquehanna's command deck vibrated slightly as the ship left hyperspace. Captain Lena Schulz blinked as the glowing light of the orange dwarf star Flyae Flyuae floated through the view windows. Sensors online. Scan the system, she called. Their first officer, Viktor Petrov, bowed over his console. 6 planets confirmed, Captain. None of them are habitable. Lena nodded furiously. They'd be stuck here for 9 months to set up an outpost, 9 months in this goddamn nowhere. Bring us into a stable orbit around the 4th planet, she said, pointing to the controller. That's where we're going to build our new home. The ship smoothly slipped through space. Lena observed the 4th planet slowly approaching, a lifeless ball of rock and ice. Attained orbit, the controller. Lena got up from her command seat. Petrov, you have the bridge. I will inform the crew. She entered the elevator and drove down to the cargo compartment, where the crew had gathered. Expecting faces looked at her as she entered. Lena scolded herself. Welcome to the Flyae Flyuae system. Our mission is clear, we will set up an outpost here for the Kasach Empire. It will be hard work, but we have grown up for this task. A murmur rose among the crew members. Lena raised her hand reassuringly. I know, 9 months is a long time. But remember, we are pioneers. We are paving the way for the expansion of our empire. And what about the locals? Cried someone from the back rows. Lena shook her head. There is no intelligent life here. Only rocks and dust. She let her gaze swing over the assembled. In a few hours, we will begin construction. Each of you knows what to do. Let's make Kasach proud. The crew greeted. Lena nodded, satisfied, and turned to walk. Captain! Cried its chief engineer Yuri. We still have to calibrate the build modules for local conditions. Lena suppressed a sigh. Then get to work, Yuri. We have no time to waste. She returned to the bridge, where Petrov waited for her with an expression of concern. Bad news? Asked Lena. Petrov nodded. The sensors have detected a radiation anomaly. Could interfere with our construction. Lena cursed quietly. Of course, it couldn't be easy. She stared out at the dirty planet beneath them. 9 long months were ahead of them. And they had just begun. Empress Sevia Heimber reigned at the head end of the oval table in the Imperial Senate. The air shivered of tension when Hart presented her proposal. Another research ship specializing in anomalies and specialized research projects, explained Emma. Her eyes shone with enthusiasm. The discoveries of EK Asimov and EK Ptolemy have shown us how much is still waiting for us out there. Myra Gupta nodded in agreement. The economic opportunities are enormous. Any anomaly could be the key to new technologies. Nadine Heimer shrugged. Anyone could pose a threat to our values. We have to be careful. Sevia raised her hand to interrupt the uplifting debate. Progress cannot be stopped, Nadine. But your concerns are not unfounded. She turned to Emma. What are the details? Emma activated a hologram in the middle of the table. The image of an elegant spacecraft appeared slim and had expanded sensor domes. The EK Ibn Battuta. Named after the great discoverer and scholar. It will be equipped with our most advanced sensors and laboratory equipment. Paulina Romero refused, her eyes were critical of the ship. And the defense? We don't know what's out there. Most modern shields and embroidery, replied Emma. But no heavy weapons. This is a research ship, not a warship. Paulina nodded reluctantly. Sevia had her gaze swing over the assembled senators. Another question? Senator Voss stood up. The cost, Imperatrix. Can we afford another ship? Myra Gupta smiled. The investment will pay off, Senator. The insights we will gain are invaluable. Sevia weighed the arguments. The tension in the room was tangible. Eventually, she nodded. The Senate approves the construction of the EK Ibn Battuta. Emma, you will lead the project. A ruin passed through the hall. Emma shone with joy while Nadine whispered, resigned. But, Sevia added, we will proceed with caution. Every discovery must be thoroughly examined before we bring it to Kasach. The senators whispered unanimously. Sevia stood up, signaling the end of the session. May this ship lead us to new horizons, to the glory of Kasach. When the senators left the chamber, Emma stayed behind. She stared at the hologram of Ibn Battuta, already thinking of the wonders that the ship would discover. Sevia stood next to her. A great responsibility, Emma. Are you ready for that? Emma nodded resolutely. More than ready, Imperatrix. We will accomplish great things. Sevia smiled lightly. I am convinced of that. But never forget, with great power comes great responsibility. The Ibn Battuta will reveal secrets that might have been better kept hidden. I understand, said Emma seriously. We will act wisely. Sevia put her hand on Emma's shoulder. I trust you, Emma. Make us proud. The Empress left the hall with these words, leaving Emma with her thoughts and plans. The EK Ibn Battuta would soon explore the universe's secrets, and Emma could not wait to take the lead. The Imperial Senate of Kasach summed up with excitement. The air was formally shivering from tension as the senators took their seats. Today would be a decision that could shape the fate of the empire for generations. Governor-in-Office Myra Gupta took the floor. Her eyes sparkled with determination. Dear colleagues, she said, the moment has come. Cities 2 is calling for us. A ruin passed through the hall. Myra continued, thanks to the heroic work of EK Belarus, we now have a bridgehead in the Cities system. The outpost is finished. It is time to take the next step. Sister Nadine Heimber stood up. Her voice trembled with suppressed anger. We can't just. But we can, Myra interrupted her. We have to, for the future of Kasach. Imperatrix Sevia Heimber observed the bead exchange with an unmoving eyebrow. Her fingers drummed a smooth rhythm on the armrests of her throne. Emma Hart took the floor. The scientific findings are clear. Cities 2 offers unique opportunities for research and development. And unique dangers, replied Nadine. Have we forgotten the reports of these parasites? A collective shouting passed through the hall. The discovery of symbiotic parasites on Cities 2 had caused attention. Settlers infected with them would be better adapted to the planet, but unable to ever live elsewhere again. Admiral Paulina Romero shook herself. The military implications cannot be underestimated. A colony on Cities 2 would significantly strengthen our strategic position in the region. The debate weighed back and forth. Hours passed. Arguments were exchanged, fears expressed and hopes aroused. Eventually, Sevia stood up. Immediately, the hall was silenced. I have heard your arguments, said the Empress quietly. All of you have put forward good points. But ultimately, there's only one decision we can make. She took a break. The tension was to be grasped with hands. We will settle Cities 2. A scream passed through the hall. Jubel mixed up with terrifying cries. Sevia raised her hand. I know that this step is not without risks. The inhospitable terrain, the parasites, all this poses great challenges. But Kasach has always mastered challenges. We will also master these. She turned to Myra. New Governor Gupta, you will coordinate the settlement. Choose your best people. Myra bowed deep. It will be an honor to me, Imperatrix. Admiral Romero, continued Sevia, the Pegasus fleet will secure the operation. Paulina greeted sharply. Understood, Imperatrix. And Emma? Sevia smiled at her research minister. I expect miracles from you and your team. Almar Kazan sat upright in his chair, staring firmly at the camera. The red light flashed, and he began his report. Ladies and gentlemen, a historic decision was taken today in the Imperial Senate. The Kingdom of Kasach will inhabit the planet of Cities 2. The Empress herself has issued the call, volunteers are being sought to open this new border. He took a brief pause to make his words work. We asked the people of Xanadu for their opinion. Here are some of their reactions. The picture changed to a busy street in the capital. An elderly woman in the costumes of the Helix Church energetically shook her head. I would never leave Kasach. Our sacred soil is here, not on any alien planet full of impurities. The following footage showed a young man with bright eyes. This is our chance to write history. Just like our ancestors at the DSE Erasmus. They dared to jump into the unknown, why shouldn't we do the same? A group of students debated lively. A young woman with short blue hair said, "Imagine what we could discover there. Legends are made of new forms of life and unknown resources, that's the fabric of legends." Her comrade-in-law nodded in agreement. Exactly. The DSE Erasmus brought us here, and now it is up to us to take the next step. Who knows, maybe we can even find traces of the other ships that broke up with the Erasmus at the time? The camera swung to a middle-aged couple. The man scratched his chin, thinking. It's tempting, no question. But what about the dangers? These parasites, of which you hear. His wife calmly laid her hand on his arm. Our ancestors also had to take risks. If nobody dared to do something new, we would still be in caves. Another Helix supporter, this time a young novice, took the floor. The lessons are clear. Our place is here, where our genes stay clean. Who knows what mutations we would be exposed to on this alien planet? The painting returned to Almar Kazan. As you can see, opinions are divided. But one thing is clear, this decision will forever change the face of our empire. The question now is, will you be part of this historic mission? Or are you staying back on Kasach? Time will show. The Eurasian spacecraft shone in the light of the red giant. Amid the enormous construction area, the body of the Eknosis, a colossal cluster of metal and technology, erupted. Admiral Paulina Romero walked vigorously over the floating inspection platform, closely followed by Governor-in-Office Myra Gupta. Paulina stopped abruptly, pointing to a section of the ship's hull. Here, we need to strengthen the armored plates. We can't take any risks. Myra nodded in agreement. The safety of the colonists is a top priority. But what about the living areas? Follow me, Paulina replied, leading Myra to a holographic model of the ship's interior. The stasis chambers occupy the largest room. Here, we have room for about 10,000 watchful crew members in the active sectors. Myra looked at the plans with her forehead crooked. And the production facilities? Distributed across several decks, it provides food, medical care, and even a small shipyard, everything a self-reliant colony needs. A welding robot sneaked over their heads, followed by a bunch of nanowire drones whirling around an open maintenance hole like a beehole. 14 months, murmured Myra. It still seems like a miracle that we can build such a ship quickly. Paulina smiled furiously. Technology and determination, Governor. But you're right, it's a huge task. They climbed into an anti-grave elevator, which took them to the next level of inspection. In front of them was a vast hangar where shuttles and smaller spacecraft would be housed. And how is the training of the volunteers? Asked Paulina as they looked over the hangar. Myra sneezed. It's challenging. We have training camps all over Kazakhstan. People learn everything from basic knowledge of wildlife survival to advanced xenobiology. Are they grown up? Most of them. It's amazing how much enthusiasm and perseverance they show. But there are also interrupters. Paulina nodded seriously. That was to be expected. Better here than at Citus too. They reached a viewing platform from which they could see the entire body of the Eknosis. The ship was huge, a floating piece of home that would soon carry millions of people through space. It's more than just a ship, said Myra quietly. It's the future of Kasach. Paulina laid a hand on Myra's shoulder. And it's up to us to ensure this future is safe and successful. They returned to the technical details, discussing energy distribution, life support systems, and defense facilities. The work on the Eknosis continued uninterruptedly, testifying to the unwavering will and visions of the Kingdom of Kasach. The holy halls of the Helix Church were tense. Nadine Heimber stood before the High Council of the Genetic Guards, her eyes glowed with determination. The shadows of flashing candles danced over the severe faces of the assembled. Brothers and sisters, Nadine began, her voice a quiet but powerful echo in the curved room. We are at a turning point. Recent developments in the Empire threaten to weaken our influence. A ruin went through the ranks of the council members. Nadine continued, the exploration of alien worlds, the discovery of extraterrestrial life, all this tests our teachings. We need to take action to regain momentum. And how do you intend to do that? asked one of the elderly guards, with a voice of skepticism. Nadine smiled thinly. Through subtle influence. The EK Ibn Battuta, the newest research ship of the Empire, offers us a unique opportunity. If we can establish the right person as commander, we will have access to the latest discoveries, and the opportunity to interpret them in our sense. The tension in the room was tangible. Some of the members of the council nodded in agreement, while others shrugged their faces. "And who is this person supposed to be?" asked a priestess from the rear rows. At that moment, the heavy doors of the council room opened. Everyone turned their heads as Dr. Chausiku entered the room. Her walk was self-confident, and her eyes sparkled with intelligence and ambition. Nadine stretched out her hand. "May I introduce you, Dr. Chausiku? A brilliant scientist, a faithful follower of our teachings, and the perfect candidate for this mission." Chausiku quickly bowed himself to the council. Her voice was calm and firm when she said, "It would be an honor for me to serve our church and the kingdom in this function." The council members tested them intensively. One of the guards refused. "Dr. Uba, are you aware that this task brings great challenges? You would have to hide your true beliefs while at the same time acting following our teachings." Chausiku nodded seriously. "I am fully aware of the responsibility. My faith and scientific education give me the strength to cope with this task." Nadine stood next to her. "Dr. Uba has already proved that she can interpret scientific findings in the light of our teachings. It is the ideal choice to secure our influence on the Empire's research missions." The Imperial Palace of Kasach shone in the light of the Red Giant. Nadine Heimber walked through the marble halls, her robes whispered at every step. Dr. Chausiku stood beside her, whose eyes sparkled from suppressed excitement. "Remember," Nadine whispered, "your scientific genius is the key. The Imperatrix values competence above everything." Chausiku nodded. "I'm ready." They reached the heavy doors to the throne hall, decorated with gold intarsia. The guards stood aside, and the doors opened silently. Empress Sevia Heimber sat on her throne, surrounded by holographic displays showing stellar maps and research data. Her penetrating gaze fixed the entrances. "Nadine, Dr. Uba," she greeted her with a slight sneeze. "I hope you're bringing good news." Nadine bowed deep. "Imperatrix, I am honored to introduce you to Dr. Chausiku. She is one of the most brilliant exobiologists of our empire and a faithful servant of the Helix teachings." Sevia's eyebrows raised slightly. "Really? And why is she standing before me today?" Chausiku took a step forward, her stance tight and confident. "Your Highness, I am here to offer my services to the EK Ibn Battuta. My research in extraterrestrial biology could be invaluable for this mission." Sevia leaned back on her throne, her face a mask of neutrality. "Interesting. And what makes you sure you're the right person for this position?" Chausiku took a deep breath. "My work at EK Asimov has shown that I can analyze and understand complex biological systems on alien worlds. EK Ibn Battuta will focus on research into anomalies, a field where my expertise could be of great use." Nadine nodded in agreement. "Dr. Uba also deeply understands the importance of our cultural values in space exploration." Sevia's eyes narrowed slightly. "Cultural values are important, but scientific objectivity is essential. How do you ensure that your personal beliefs do not affect your research, Dr. Uba?" Chausiku stood up to the Empress's eyes. "My faith and my scientific education complement each other, Your Highness. They give me the strength to explore the unknown without forgetting our principles. I strive to find the truth no matter where it leads us." A quiet smile crawled over Sevia's lips. A diplomatic response. "But tell me, Dr. Uba, what would you do if your discoveries conflicted with the teachings of the Helix?" The tension in the room compressed into an almost tangible presence. Nadine held her breath, her fingers cramped unnoticed in the folds of her robe. Chausiku stood relentless, her face a mask of concentration. Fragments of a second stretched for eternity as the scientist formulated her answer. In the tense silence, the silent sound of the hollow screen sounded aesthetically loud. "My approach would be to accept the findings and then find out if they could not be compatible with our doctrines," Chausiku explained. Her voice sounded firm, but an attentive observer would have noticed the slight trembling of her hands. "Science and faith must not be mutually exclusive. Often deeper truths are revealed only by closer consideration." "I see," answered the Empress, her gaze penetrating and unfathomable. She leaned back on her throne, her fingers thoughtfully joined together. "You can go. I will reconsider the matter and let you know my decision." With a slight movement of her hand, she released the two women, their faces a mask of royal neutrality. After Nadine and Chao Si-ku left the throne hall, Sevia activated the connection with Emma Hart with a flowing hand movement. The flashing image of the research minister materialized before her. "Emma, I need your advice," Sevia began without hesitation. Her gaze was serious, her voice quiet but determined. Emma bent her head, her eyes narrowed slightly. "What's the matter, Imperatrix?" Dr. Chao Si-ku asked. Nadine proposed to her as commander of the EK Ibn Battuta. Sevia paused for a moment. "I'm considering agreeing." Emma's hologram flashed as she moved abruptly. "With permission, Imperatrix, but is that wise? Uba is a brilliant scientist, no question, but her connections to the helix." "That's why," Sevia gently interrupted. "I see in it the possibility of a, well, let's say, Pyrrhic victory for Nadine and the helix." Emma's eyebrows collapsed. "I don't quite understand, Imperatrix." Sevia refused, her voice barely more than a whisper. "By giving Uba this position, we satisfy the demands of the helix. But at the same time, we expose them to the realities of research. Confronted with the wonders of the universe." She left the sentence unfinished. "You hope that the scientific findings will shake their beliefs," Emma concluded the thought. Her voice sounded tense. "This is a dangerous game, Imperatrix. What if it doesn't work? If, instead, it manipulates research?" Sevia nodded slowly. "A risk, of course. But one I'm willing to take. The alternative would be to continue increasing the helix's influence." Emma's hologram flashed again, this time out of excitement. "And what about the scientific integrity of the mission?" "We can't, Emma," interrupted Sevia gently but determinedly. "I understand your concerns. But remember, Uba is primarily a scientist. Their curiosity, their desire for research, these are qualities that are not so easily suppressed." A tense silence spread. Emma's face was a mask of concentration as she weighed away the Empress's words. Eventually, she breathed deeply. "I see the logic in your plan, Imperatrix. But I can't say I approve of him. The risks are considerable." Sevia bowed her head with appreciation. "Your honesty honors you, Emma. And I appreciate your advice. But ultimately, the decision lies with you," Emma finished the sentence. Her voice sounded resigned but respectful. Olga Petrov rubbed her tired eyes and tightened her shoulders. In front of her, she flashed the hologram of Myra Gupta, the sector governor. The captain of EK Belarus took a deep breath and began her report. "Mrs. Governor, work on the power station in Citizens orbit is ongoing. We are in the timetable, albeit short." Olga activated a three-dimensional projection of the semi-finished station. Metallic striving slipped like a skeleton into space, surrounded by floating working platforms and transport drones. "The main structure is 60% complete. Our biggest challenge remains the radiation exposure from the star. The workers' shields do not last forever." Myra nodded seriously. "I understand. What about the solar modules?" "Yelena can say more about this," Olga whispered to her chief engineer. Yelena Voronin entered the picture, sweating spots darkened her uniform. "The first panels are installed and work perfectly. We are achieving an efficiency of 89%, better than expected." "Excellent," Myra praised. "And the energy stores?" "The assembly is running," Yelena explained. "We initially had problems with the connections, but that's solved. We'll start testing in 2 weeks." Olga watched Myra's eyebrows relax. But the relief was short-lived. "Captain, what about the crew?" asked the governor. Olga hesitated. "The work is hard. The layers are long, and the conditions are extreme. We're rotating as often as we can, but exhaustion is becoming widespread. The mental stress is increasing. Dr. Novak increased the depression rate by 12%. Myra shrugged her forehead. "This is worrying. What are you doing about it?" "We have expanded the leisure opportunities," said Viktor Petrov, the head of security. We have additional holodecks and new simulations. It helps, but it does not replace real breaks. Olga nodded. I have applied for more staff. So far, without success. I'll take care of it, Myra promised. What about the resources? Do you have everything you need? Mostly, replied Olga. The last delivery was incomplete. We improvise, but it takes time. Send me a detailed list, Myra asked. I'll make sure you're given priority. Thank you, Madam Governor. Olga felt the tension in her shoulders relax somewhat. Maybe they'd be able to keep up with the timetable, but the road to October was still long. Anything else, Captain? Asked Myra. Olga hesitated. Something else worried her, something she couldn't quite grasp, a sense of threat that she couldn't explain. But without solid evidence. No, Madam Governor. That's all. Almar Kazan shaved himself and wiped his jacket smoothly. The camera whispered as the director signaled the start of the broadcast. With a professional smile, Almar addressed the millions of spectators in the Kingdom of Kasach. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a historic day for our beloved empire. The EK Ibn Battuta, our latest jewel of space exploration, was solemnly put into service. Behind him, the screen showed images of the glossy research ship floating majestically in orbit. The sun of Kasach was reflected on the polished shell. At the forefront of this impressive undertaking is Dr. Ceausescu Uba, a brilliant scientist and now commander of Ibn Battuta. Her appointment marks a turning point in our history. Almar stopped momentarily as the camera zoomed on Dr. Uba's face. Her eyes shone with pride and determination as she took the commander's oath. Dr. Uba embodies the spirit of research and progress that drives our empire. But it also carries the legacy of our traditions. The images shifted to a setting of the Pegasus fleet, which passed in perfect formation at the Ibn Battuta. The precision of their movements caused Almar to shake with pride. The Pegasus Fleet military parade reminds us that research and security must go hand in hand. Admiral Paulina Romero has once again proved that our armed forces are ready to protect our explorers. He watched the fleet's ships artificially maneuver around the Ibn Battuta, a ballet of power and elegance. But this day is not just for military strength. It symbolizes our unwavering will to expand the boundaries of the known. The camera turned back on Almar, who now looked more serious. The EK Ibn Battuta bears the name of one of the greatest discoverers in human history. Like Ibn Battuta centuries ago, this ship will advance into unknown fields, explore new worlds, and expand our understanding of the universe. He took a meaningful break and let his gaze swing over the assembled dignitaries. Empress Sevia Heimber has given a clear sign with the appointment of Ibn Battuta. Kasach will not remain stagnant. We will move forward, learn, and grow. Almar felt his voice vibrating from emotion. He believed every word he said. Ibn Battuta's journey will not be easy. Dr. Uba and her crew must cope with challenges we can't imagine yet. But I am convinced that they will triumph. The pictures now showed the joyful crowd gathered at the spaceport. Thousands of flags, a sea of red and gold, were blowing in the wind. Sevia Heimber stood in her throne seat and activated the whole binding. The flashing image of Ceausescu Uba materialized before her. The newly appointed commander of the EK Ibn Battuta stood tight, and her eyes sparkled with expectation. Commandant Uba, began Sevia, her voice sounding clear and authoritarian throughout the room. Your mission is of the utmost importance to the Empire. Ceausescu leaned his head slightly. I'm ready, Imperatrix. Sevia folded her hands in front of her. Your task will be tripartite. Firstly, the study of anomalies. Anomalies, Imperatrix? Yes. We have reports of unexplained phenomena in external systems, gravitational anomalies, time distortions, and energy signatures of unknown origin. I want you to research them and, if possible, explain them. Ceausescu nodded, her eyes glowed from scientific zeal. I understand. What about the second part? Archaeological excavations, continued Sevia. The discoveries on Citasiva have shown that we are not alone, or were. I want you to find and investigate further traces of the predecessors. A fascinating task, Imperatrix. I promise to treat every artifact with the utmost care. Sevia smiled thinly. I am convinced of that. And finally, the third part, Special projects. Chao Si-ku raised an eyebrow. Special projects? Research projects of the highest level of secrecy, Sevia explained. Details are provided via an encrypted channel. But be assured that these projects could significantly influence the future of our empire. The commander in office was even more upright, if that was even possible. I feel honored, Imperatrix. You should, replied Sevia. This mission requires not only scientific excellence but also discretion and loyalty. I expect regular encrypted reports, only for my eyes. Of course, Imperatrix. I will not disappoint you. Sevia leaned, her eyes drilled into Chao Si-ku's. Never forget, Commander, you are not only responsible for your crew and your ship. You carry the future of Kasach on your shoulders. Chao Si-ku swallowed hard, but her voice remained firm. I understand, Imperatrix. I swear that I will do anything to make this mission successful. Good, Sevia nodded. Any more questions? Only one, Imperatrix. How should we deal with potentially dangerous discoveries? Sevia's eyes became hard. Ultimate caution, Commander. Observe and analyze, but don't interfere unless I give explicit orders. Understood? Perfect, Imperatrix. Then break up, Commander Uba. The stars are waiting for you. Sevia ended the connection with a nibble. The hologram blinked and disappeared, leaving the Empress alone in her throne hall. She leaned back in her chair and stared thoughtfully into the void where the picture of Chao Si-ku had been. Myra Gupta entered the Imperial Senate with a decisive step. Her colorful dress contrasted strongly with the dark faces of the gathered senators. As she stood at the speaker's desk, she felt the burden of the story on her shoulders. Honorable members of the Senate, she began, firmly and clearly. Today, we are at a turning point in Kasach's history. The senators stood on their seats, and curious eyes met Myra from all sides. For centuries, we have ignored the scars of our industrial past. The poisoned Erland, once centers of progress, has become a reminder of our short-sightedness. Myra activated a holoprojection. Images of rusting factories, polluted rivers, and dried soil flashed in front of the presenter's eyes. These wounds on the face of our homeland cry for healing. I propose launching a comprehensive renaturation project. Senator Voss, an old hardliner, snorted contemptuously. And where do we get the resources for this, new Governor Gupta? We have more pressing problems. Myra smiled gently. The cost of inactivity, Senator, far exceeds the investment in our future. She presented diagrams and projections showing the long-term economic benefits of renaturation. The figure spoke a clear language. Imagine, continued Myra, with her voice now passionate, fertile fields instead of poisonous swamps. Forests that purify the air instead of rusting metal rods. A Kasach who is no longer drawn by his past but looks towards a green future. The senators murmured among themselves. Myra saw the mood slowly turning in her favor. It's not just about ecology, she stressed. It is about our identity as a people. Will we continue to walk on poisoned soil, or will we leave behind a legacy of change and renewal? Empress Sevia Heimber rose up. New Governor Gupta, your proposal is bold, but I see the wisdom in it. How do you see the implementation? Myra nodded thankfully. A step-by-step approach, Imperatrix. We are starting with pilot projects in the areas most affected. Local communities are involved in creating jobs and promoting connectivity. She rolled out a detailed schedule. In 5 years, we could see the first green shoots, in 20, a complete transformation. The debate was back and forth. Objections were voiced, and concerns were expressed, but Myra matched every objection with facts and visions. When the vote was finally taken, Myra held her breath. The votes were counted, and the tension grew tangible. The Senate spokesman announced that with a small majority, the Imperial Senate votes in favor of the new Governor Gupta's renaturation project. A ruin passed through the hall. Myra shut her eyes for a moment. Relief and pride flowed through her. She had done it. A new chapter in the history of Kasach would begin. The Kasach data maze was full of activity. Myra Gupta's renaturation project spread like a running fire through digital channels. Holograms blinked, data strings pulsated, and heated debates burst out everywhere. In a virtual forum, an avatar argued with the traits of a weather-brown farmer. At last. Our fields are drying, while the old factories are poisoning the soil. It's time we cleaned up. Cleaning up? Replied another avatar, whose face was half covered by an industrial worker's mask. You're supposed to wipe out our story. These ruins are memorials of our past. The discussion wavered back and forth, arguments shook each other like stones in a cosmic storm. An environmental group posted enthusiastic simulations of the saturated areas in another maze area. Lush forests grew from the ruins, and clear streams flowed through formerly dead landscapes. The comments below exploded. Utopic nonsense. Wrote one. Who will pay for this? The future of our children. Replied another. Can we afford to do nothing? Myra Gupta herself navigated carefully through the digital chaos. She observed the reactions and noted concerns and proposals. In a live stream, she asked questions of concerned citizens. New Governor Gupta asked a woman with a loud voice, "What will happen to the workers in the old industrial areas?" Myra smiled gently. "You will be the first to benefit from the new jobs in renaturation. We retrain, we create new perspectives." A young man said, "But the historical significance of these places. Do you want to make everything equal to the ground?" "Not at all," Myra replied. "We are planning memorials and museums that honor our industrial past, but we cannot live in the past." The comments were overlapping. Approval and rejection kept the balance. Resistance formed in the depths of the maze. A group calling itself the Keepers of Heritage called for a digital protest. Their message spread virally: "Stop selling out our history." At the same time, environmental activists organized a virtual demonstration supporting the project. Thousands of avatars gathered in a simulated park, holding signs, "Green Future for Kasach." The news feeds overlap. Experts were interviewed, forecasts were made, fears were aroused, and hopes were nurtured. Myra Gupta was in the eye of the storm. She knew the coming weeks would be crucial. Public opinion would decide whether their ambitious plan would succeed or fail. Myra Gupta entered the Imperial Senate with a pile of data pads under her arm. Her colorful garment was in sharp contrast to the severe mourning of the assembled senators. She felt the gaze as she walked to the speaker's desk. "Honorable members of the Senate," she began, firmly and clearly. "Today, I present to you construction proposals for civil industries that will strengthen our economy and create new jobs." A ruin passed through the hall. Still upset by the defeat of the renaturation project, Senator Voss shrugged his arms to his chest. Myra activated a holoprojection. Images of modern factories, research laboratories, and handicrafts blinked in front of the attendees' eyes. She explained, "These projects will take Kasach into a new era of prosperity. We can't just live in our space industry. We need a diversified economy." The debate burned. Myra had questions, but she paired every objection with facts and predictions. Suddenly, Nadine Heimber stood up. Her simple robe from the Helix Church sharply contrasted with Myra's colorful outfit. "Governor Gupta," her voice cut through the tumult, "your plan may be economically meaningful, but where is the spiritual dimension? We must not forget our roots." Myra felt the atmosphere in the room change. She didn't expect Nadine's intervention. Nadine continued, "I propose the construction of an autochthonous monument, a sign of our connection with Kasach, our divine mission." The senators murmured. Some were shaking their heads, while others were nicking in agreement. Myra feverishly sought an answer that would satisfy both sides. "Maybe we can combine both? An industry that respects our traditions?" Empress Sevia Heimber still rose. The hall silenced instantly. "I listened to both of you," she said, her eyes wandering between Myra and Nadine. "Both proposals have merits. Kasach needs economic progress and spiritual anchorage." She took a break, and the tension became tangible. "I therefore conclude as follows: we will build the civil industries, as proposed by the new governor, Gupta. At the same time, we will build the autochthonous monument, which Sister Nadine demands." A ruin passed through the hall. Myra and Nadine exchanged amazed eyes. "This monument," continued Sevia, "will be in the heart of our new industrial zones. It is meant to remind us who we are and where we come from as we move into the future." Applause burst. Myra saw how even Senator Voss reluctantly nodded. New Governor Gupta, Sister Nadine, Sevia addressed the two women directly. I expect you to cooperate closely in the implementation. Show Kasach that progress and tradition can go hand in hand. Myra and Nadine bowed to the Empress. When their eyes met, they were filled with a mixture of respect and challenge. Almar Kazan straightened his tie and took a deep breath. The red lamp over the camera flashed on, broadcast time. He put on his professional smile and addressed the millions of spectators in the Kingdom of Kasach directly. Good evening, honorable fellow citizens. Today, I report on a fascinating development in our beloved kingdom. Behind him flashed a hologram showing a majestic spacecraft sculpture surrounded by futuristic industrial plants. The Imperial Senate has decided to erect an autonomous monument that honors our past and symbolizes our future. The chosen theme is the legendary DSE Erasmus. Kazan's eyes shone with enthusiasm. For those of you who are not familiar with the legend, let me briefly explain. The hologram turned into an artistic representation of a giant generation ship gliding through space. The DSE Erasmus was the ship that brought our ancestors to Earth eons ago. It is the foundation of our civilization, the origin of our genetic line. Kazan rejected, and his voice became persistent. The choice of this motif is of profound importance. It reminds us of our roots, the epic journey that brought us here. At the same time, it symbolizes our unwavering pioneering spirit. The picture changed to interviews with passers on the streets of Xanadu. It is important that we do not forget our history, said an elderly woman with wet eyes. Erasmus stands for everything we are, a young man proudly said. Courageous, determined, innovative. Kazan nodded in agreement. The decision to build this monument amid our new industrial zones is a masterstroke of symbolism. It connects our mythical past with our progressive future. He paused for a moment to make the words work. Some critics argue that Erasmus is just a legend, a fairy tale from long ago. But I ask you, is that not the point? Legends inspire us, drive us to grow beyond ourselves. The hologram now showed designs for the planned monument, a colossal replica of Erasmus surrounded by smaller sculptures depicting different aspects of Kazakh history. This monument will be more than just a statue, Kazan continued, his voice full of passion. It will be a pilgrimage place for our people, where we can become aware of our origins and destiny. He leaned back, looking straight into the camera. Dear fellow citizens, in a time of great change and discovery, it is more important than ever that we know our roots. Erasmus reminds us that we have already done the impossible. And with this spirit, we will also meet future challenges. Emma Hart stood on the bridge of the EK Asimov, her eyes shone with excitement. The Q-turn system spread before them, an unexplored gem in the cosmos. The orange dwarf star cast a ghostly light on the displays. Full-powered sensors, Emma ordered. I want to track every dust grain in this system. The crew worked feverishly, and data was flowing in. Suddenly, one of the console screens whispered. Commandant, we have something on Q-turn 3, Ensign Tala. It looks like a card? Emma bowed over the screen. Strange lines and patterns appeared on the deserted surface of the planet. Too precise to be natural. Enlarge, Emma ordered. The structure became clearer. By the stars, this is an astrocartographic representation. The crew murmured excitedly. Emma felt her heart beating faster. Who created this map, and what did she show? Mark the coordinates. We will send an outside team for a more detailed investigation. But before Emma could give any further instructions, Lieutenant Ravi called. Commandant, I discovered an anomaly in the asteroid belt. Object RMK 1773. Emma turned to the main screen. An asteroid, bigger than the others, was floating there, but something was wrong. He's hollow, Emma whispered. Scan for artificial structures. The seconds extended into eternities. Then Ravi nodded. Confirmed. The asteroid has been caved. There are signs of old energy signatures. Emma breathed deep, 2 discoveries in such a short time. The Q-turn system hid more secrets than she ever dreamed. Bring us closer, she said. I want to take a look inside. EK Asimov glides majestically through the asteroid belt. RMK 1773 grew on the screen. His crumbling surface hid the mystery within him. "Wait," Ensign Tala suddenly exclaimed. "I found something on the surface." Emma hardened. On the rough rock of the asteroid, the outlines of a structure appeared, angular, foreign, and clearly of artificial origin. "A wreck," Emma whispered. "By all the stars, we found a wreck." The bridge sank in respectful silence. Emma felt her neck hair lying up. "You had just written history," she said at the end. "Document everything, every detail. We will present this finding to the Imperial Senate." Emma knew that these discoveries had the potential to change everything. The map on Q-turn 3, the caved asteroid, the mysterious wreck, each in itself would have been a sensation. Together, they pointed to a truth more significant than Kost knew. She looked at her crew and saw a mixture of excitement and nervousness in their faces. Emma knew they had to be careful. These discoveries could lead Kasach into a new era, or destroy everything they believed in. Emma was sitting in her neighborhood on EK Asimov, surrounded by holographic displays. The data from the Q-turn system flashed in front of her tired eyes. 40%. They had just explored 40% of this fascinating solar system and already overwhelmed the discoveries. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she compiled her report. The astro mapping on Q-turn 3, the asteroid RMK 1773 with the mysterious wreck, every detail had to be accurately documented. Emma shaved her sleep. The responsibility was heavy. She knew that her recommendations to Empress Sevia would have far-reaching consequences. "Enable computer voice," she ordered. "New paragraph, recommendations to your Divine Majesty, Empress Sevia Heimber." Emma hesitated for a moment, weighing her words carefully. Then she began to dictate. "Based on our previous findings in the Q-turn system, I strongly recommend deploying additional research ships. The discoveries exceed our boldest expectations and require thorough, systematic investigation. Exploration of the map on Q-turn 3 should be prioritized. Its potential implications for our understanding of the galaxy cannot be underestimated. A specialized team of xenoarchaeologists and cryptographers would be invaluable here. I also propose to authorize a dedicated rescue mission for the wreckage of asteroid RMK 1773. The technology needed to do this exceeds EK Asimov's capabilities. A rescue ship with advanced equipment could deliver insights to revolutionize our technological understanding. Given the sensitivity of these discoveries, I also recommend the utmost secrecy. The possible impact on our society and our worldview is unpredictable. A controlled disclosure of information under the supervision of the Imperial Senate would be advisable. In conclusion, I would like to stress that we are on the verge of a new era. The secrets of the Q-turn system could be the key to Kasach's future. Every further exploration brings both unexpected opportunities and potential risks. I therefore ask for your wise leadership in this crucial phase of our mission." Emma let the words work on her. She knew that she dared a lot with that recommendation, but the discoveries in the Q-turn system were too significant to ignore. She added the final lines with a deep breath, "I am at your disposal at any time for further explanations and await your instructions. Drew, Emma Hart, Commander of the EK Asimov." Emma read the report for the last time. Every word had to be precise, every recommendation thoughtful. The future of Kost may depend on this document. Hey, I would be happy if you could give my video a like, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date.